tomorrow. Hi, it's Ethan Musolini, the Merchant of Success. Welcome. Today we are going to talk about managing change for Success 2.0. You see, this afternoon when I was reflecting about this subject matter, I got reminded when I was in high school, way back in 1990. That's when I was in my senior one. So should give you an idea of how old I am. And this guy, we were involved in a strike, and this guy was assuring the headmaster then and said, you either change or change will change you. And I've never forgotten that. So it stuck with me as a 13-year-old. So that should give you an idea of how old I am. So the key thing here is to remember that indeed if you're not adaptable, if you're not open to change, change will crash. Change is always moving. So meaning if you don't move out of the way, change will crash you, will roll over you, it will continue to move. And if you're flexible and adaptable and agile, then you're able to move forward faster. Okay. So the typical framework I follow is I look at clarity. Clarity, we look at the what and why, we look at the mindsets, we look at the strategies, the skill sets, and of course, the mastery, okay? So let's talk about clarity, first of all. So when we talk about clarity, we just first we need to kick off with change. And Jacqueline is reminding us that the only constant is change. Thank you, Jacqueline. And the key thing to note here is if you do not understand, change doesn't care who you are. Change is change, period. The world is always moving. It never stops. By the way, every day you wake up with a new body, new cells, new something. So things are always evolving. It's the law of nature. The plants are new, your skin is new, the cells are new, or they at least changed somehow. Your chemical balance in the body has changed a bit. It's not exactly as it was yesterday. In fact, it's not exactly as it was 5 minutes ago. So we have to learn from nature. We have to borrow from nature and just be reminded of that. So some people who think that, I won't even use the statement, what I was going to say, but let me leave that statement for now. And, there's this Chinese proverb that when the winds of change blow, some people build walls, others build windmills. So those who build walls, they just want to stop change. And it never lasts. That nature bats last, it always wins. While others build windmills, they harness the wind of change to produce power. So in the same way, you need to ask yourself, are you building a windmill of change or are you building a wall to fight change? So you're either fighting change or you're harnessing change. And what I will be focusing on today is how do we harness change? Because harnessing change is more sustainable, it is more profitable, it makes you healthier and you will stay sane. But fighting change, you'll be fighting a losing battle, my friend. So when we talk about change, it is to give a different position, course, or direction. That's according to Webster's Collegiate Dictionary. And when you talk about change management, it's really about a set of processes employed to ensure that significant changes are implemented in an orderly, controlled, and systematic fashion to effect organizational change. And I'll be looking at both ends of how do you approach change when you want to effect it in an organization, and how should you effect change as an individual. So I'll look at two areas. I'll be talking in 2 lanes. I'll be running in 2 lanes. I'll be jumping from one lane to another. In one instance, I'll be talking about a change in an organization because I know most of the people actually on the call now are leaders. And then also, how do you deal with change as an individual, which applies to all of us. And whether you're in a leadership position yet or not, better to be prepared for this. If you're not yet a leader, so that when you're in that position to communicate change, you'll be in a better place. So why is this subject important? So this subject is very, very important because we are living in changing times. In fact, it's not like we are living in changing times. We are always living in changing times. You know, every moment people say, oh, we are experiencing rapid change. And by the way, change keeps accelerating. It never slows down. That's what's amazing. So for people who fight change or who use funny words that reflect no, that there want to be change, they're forgetting that change is always accelerating. I mean, my daughter this morning, or was it last night, she discovered a way of how to use Word to draw, and I was like, what? I've never seen that. You mean you can do that in Word? She's 7, I'm 43, for Christ's sake. And so that's that. But you see, kids, I was chatting with one of the mastermind members yesterday on phone saying, look, the kids now are much more aware. They are so tuned in because their vibration and how they are born now, their DNA is just different. Just know that their DNA of today's children is much more different from the DNA of older times. Children born after 2012, their DNA is different. It is, but that's a subject for another day. I won't go into detail, but that's it. So change is always accelerating super, super fast. Also, we need to remember that if change isn't managed well, it can cause perpetual stress, loss of motivation, and disorder. Those of you who are leaders, you know what I'm talking about. Even when you're not a leader, you know that if you do not manage change well, it can cause unnecessary commotion. It can actually cause demotivation. It can cause more chaos than order. And when I say more chaos than order, not all change is good. Let's also remember that. So not every change is meant to be adopted at this particular time in your life. There are certain programs I see and know, and I'm thinking, okay, if I take on this, it's going to create more chaos than order. And there are changes I see that if I adopt to this, then it's going to create more order than chaos. So you have to be aware of all these dynamics. Also, new needs are emerging and they require new solutions. When I was talking to when I was invited by Centenary Bank to speak to the youth about how to leverage the current, how to turn the current challenges into opportunities, I told them, look, challenges create new needs. Some of those new needs, for example, is, their kids stuck at home. So how do you engage them? I was telling them, look, most people want there's more activity online. So what applications can you create? That's a new need. So there is one challenge, but then it creates a new need. And a new need requires new solutions. And that means you have to think about change. So most people now want home deliveries. Rather than them go to purchase, they would rather have home deliveries. So, I would rather send the border guy to get me certain things rather than me driving now to the supermarket to buy things. So also we need to remember that what doesn't change dies. The Dead Sea is dead because it receives and holds. Freshwater bodies, they receive and give. So water bodies are in constant change motion. They receive and give. They receive new and give new. They receive new waters and give away new waters. That's what keeps them fresh. So if you want to be fresh, you have to be open to receive new ideas and provide new solutions. Receive new ideas, provide new solutions. You need to, usually when I'm training managers, when I'm invited, I always tell them, look, part of your job is to generate something new. Because if you keep saying, like I've always said, I used to hear of those guys when I was still young, in my teen years and early 20s. Like I've always said, And then when I grew up and researched about these things about change and how we need to be evolving, I'm like, my friend, you just can't keep saying like I've always said. And you see, for example, this is a session number 40 on a daily basis. There are some people here who have been who have been attending every session. So you imagine if I didn't have something new to offer. So the world is always changing. And meaning if I wasn't providing something new every day, then they wouldn't be here. And in the same way, if you don't provide something new every day, then people are going to switch off. And once they switch off, then you've lost the plot, so to speak. And someone also had actually hinted on this, that change is the only constant in life. We are always changing. Things are always changing. Things are always moving. And that, my friend, is something to behold and pay attention to. Okay. So, does this, let me see, what do we have? Dorothy says, like I've always said, and forever shall it be mindset. Yeah, forever. Forever shall be mindset doesn't work, my friend. No. Other explanation around that according to the Webster's Collegiate Dictionary, change is to give a different position, course, or direction. That's how the dictionary explains it or defines it. While when we talk about change management, say in the organizational setting, in the context of an organization, it is a set of processes employed to ensure that significant changes are implemented, and they may not necessarily be significant, they may be also small, are implemented in an orderly, controlled, and systematic fashion to effect organizational change. So that's what it is. Please let me know if that is clearer now. Let's see, clear. Okay, great. Fantastic. All right, now let's talk about mindset. Let's talk about mindsets that drive change. Here are the 4 mindsets that would be useful for you, all right, to help you, to enable you move forward. All right, so let's look at the first mindset. The first mindset that drives change is what is in this change for me or us. There's always something. And when we say something, I mean benefit. So if there is one mindset that is priceless in my view, it is that thought process of what's in this change for me? What advantages are in this change for me? What good could be hidden that I'm not yet seeing that is in this change for me? So you ask yourself that question. The other mindset, which is very useful, is how do I or we adjust to adapt? It's called the adaptation mindset. It's an extremely useful mindset. When I was reflecting on this mindset today, I got reminded of one of the teachers who used to come home to coach my daughters. Brilliant teacher. So because of as of this recording, because of the current challenges, so we couldn't allow her to come home. So I said, you know, how about you go to Zoom? You know, you start online classes. Like, but you see, I always prefer online. I mean, face-to-face. There are so many advantages. I said, yeah, there are many advantages indeed. It's just that the circumstances are calling us to be online. Said, you see, you know, and then long before we could know it, boom, total lockdown. So guess what? She had to, so change forced her to actually open up online coaching for, you know, and now my daughter is able to get online and get coached. So what she was lacking then was, even when you're talking about the bell curve, there are those what we call the early adopters. Okay, so she was not an early adopter; she was like a late adopter. So the key thing, though, the trick is, do not wait for change to force you to adapt. For her, the total lockdown is the one that forced her to adapt. But the writing was on the wall that given what was going on, indeed we needed to, given the circumstances, we needed to change to go online quickly. So the mindset is, do not wait to be forced. If anything, the earlier you can adapt, the better. That's the adaptation mindset. Next is, what kind of partnerships do I or we have to make moving forward? That's a solutions mindset. So in other words, you're thinking aloud. You're thinking in different ways and means to see how you can solve this by adapting or partnering with other people. Yeah, so the key question is, what kind of partnerships do I, what do you need to move forward? And it may not be just the partnerships. It could be the new moves you need to have to move forward. In other words, what's the solution? So if I was to boil it down to one question, if I was to turn that into a question form, it would be, what is the solution here? The other mindset is, how do I or how do we safeguard ourselves or myself in future for a softer landing? Now, that's a thinking ahead mindset. And I shared with you the strategy I used to prepare my colleagues at Success Africa for the second wave of the current challenge we are in. So that was a thinking ahead mindset that I tapped into. That's part of what helped me to tap into that. So meaning, even with all the whatever happened, at least it wasn't a huge, we were already switched into all working from home fully, 100%. So when you think ahead, so part of your job is to be futuristic. Part of your job as a leader is to be futuristic. And even if you're not a leader, your life, you just need to be thinking about the future. Say, okay, what are the trends? Where is the future headed? I recall one of my friends was telling me that she was listening to Jackie Conde, the former managing director of NTV. And apparently for her, she said that she took her son to study robotics because she knows that the future is robotics, not even the future, the present and the future. The future is going to be dominated by robotics. So people who will have the skill sets of robotics, engineering, or whatever other arms are, they're going to be well prepared for the changes we are going through. If you're into programming, for example, people like Andrew, if I were you, I would make sure that I'm definitely tuned into the blockchain technology, because that's the present and the future. So people who are super skilled in blockchain technology as of this recording, that's the present and the future. The demands are going to keep accelerating. Oh, thank you, Richard. It was a slip of the mind. Yes, Agnes Asimwe Konde, former MD at NTV Uganda. Yeah, thank you, Richard. Yeah, I met Agnes Asimwe Konde. Thank you for the correction, Richard. Much appreciated. Yeah, so people like Agnes, they are tapping into thinking ahead mindset, not only for themselves, but also for their children. Okay. So that's something that we can borrow. So when I talk about what kind of partnerships do I or we need to make moving forward, when I calling it the solutions mindset, partnerships means, and when I say partnerships, it could be one person, it could be a couple of people. So they are, usually you find that, not usually, you find there are certain moments of change that you need a hand to go with, meaning you can't turn things around alone. So let's assume this, not let's assume, this event, for example, these events that I'm running. So I've had to get a team, okay? So I'm partnering with a team to help me deliver this. I can't do all this by myself. So they are partners. And though I call them team successors, they are partners. I'm partnering with them. And meaning, so what you're looking for is who else or which group of people do I need to connect with or to persuade to come on board such that I can turn this around to move forward or to make sure that I succeed in the times like this. And that I cannot put rules or exact definitions. It's depending on the context. So who do you need? What group of people do you need? Is it an organization that you need to partner with? Is it an individual? Is it a friend? Is it your wife? Is it your children? Who do you need to partner with to move forward or to succeed? That's what I meant. All right, let's connect or talk about the strategies that are required. All right. The change management strategy that works. That's what we're going to explore. So here, for this particular strategy, I'm going to focus mainly on the organizational aspect. Okay? And then with the skill set, I'm going to focus on the individual, because usually you find when you talk about change, it's from those perspectives. Now, when you're communicating change, so here I'm going to mainly focus on the, if you're a leader, for example, and you want to communicate change or you want to engage change. So what do you do? Okay. Number one is establish rationale for change. Give a strong why, sell the vision. Now, most times, one of the biggest challenges I see, and it's quite shocking, in most organizations or in most instances, you find a leader is thinking about change or thinks through change, about change, and then they just start change and say, okay, beginning tomorrow, we are going to start this. But you've not communicated, why are we having that change? So you need to sell the vision. Why are we? So in other words, you need to communicate and say, you know what? Beginning, let me use something simple. I don't need to use something complicated. Say, beginning next week, we are going to start using fuel cards because it's going to help us with accountability. Number two, there will be quick access for you. You'll be able to access fuel quickly without coming to the accountant's office every week. And that way will be more efficient. That way, in case there's something that you need to do quickly, you know, you can get on the road and start moving right away rather than waiting for the office to be closed, to be opened. So what I've done there is I've communicated the change at an organizational level, which is efficiency, but then I've also communicated how the individual is going to benefit. So then that way, a person sees, okay, there's rationale behind this. It's not just fuel cards per se, it's just that there is a reasoning behind this. Then the other key thing is you have to communicate the desired change with precise focus. What do I mean by precise focus? There's a difference between, okay, we are having these fuel cards because, you know, that is the way things are working these days. And I'm sure it will be for the better. That is very generic. Precise focus, I'm talking about, say, look, it's going to help us become more efficient, or it could even mean that, hey, we've calculated the numbers, apart from saving us at least 3 hours per week of processing paperwork, it will also help us save some money, because when you buy fuel ahead of time, you save 10%. So meaning it is saving 10% of the money to the organization, and it is also saving operational time, 3 hours at for the individuals engaged in that. So that is precise, focused communication. Next step is you need to create change readiness. You have to ask yourself, have I trained people to do this? Have they been equipped? So during the first lockdown, we did research, Success Africa in conjunction with Ultimate Multimedia Consult. We made research and we discovered that most people were not trained or prepared to work remotely. Okay. It was certain, but then at the same time, there wasn't efforts for a good number of people they didn't know how to use certain tools online and all that. So what they were crying out for is, hey, train me, equip me, get me ready. So when you're thinking about change, it's not just about changing per se, it's also about, have you prepared the team? Have you trained them? Do they know how to use things? And one of the quickest ways to do this is to use the coaching and mentoring method. My favorite coaching and mentoring method is the demonstration method. For example, I'll just give you a quick, simple example in my view. So most people, when they are given documents or when they receive documents for editing, and someone asks for comments, they go in, put in their comments, edit and all that. My favorite style is, okay, all right, let's meet. Okay, before we would of course do it face to face. Now we would put the document on Zoom and let's edit this together. So as I'm editing, I'm explaining why I'm editing what I'm editing and explaining what I'm deleting or adding in, such that the person downloads the thought process. Once the person gets the thought process, then them doing that thing in the future is much, much easier. Okay. So of course, initially you'll spend much more time. And that's where leaders, they're like, but that takes a lot of time. Yeah, you will front load a lot of time up front, but then it will save you a lot of time down the road, because now they can do things which you are able to do, which previously you are spending a lot of time doing. So as much as possible, equip people for change. Next, clarify. Then you need to clarify roles and required actions to achieve change. What are people's roles? What are they supposed to do to make sure that that change is activated? Is it a new banking system? Is it a new accounting system that will be required for the fuel cards to work properly? And who will be responsible for that? How? When do they pick these cards? How often? How much money will be? So this needs to be clarified. What are the people's roles in all this? The other key to pay attention to is you need to manage change. Right hands in the right place. Say no to regression, consistently remind people, and reward change. So what I mean by that, rewarding change doesn't mean, by the way, always to be that you have to give people money, to give them trips. Sometimes a reward can be as simple as thank you, all right? Or you're going to have lunch with the MD today for all this great work. That's a reward. But also you need to be careful not to regress. It's very easy to regress. It's a bit tougher to sustain people at new levels of change than it is to regress. Regressing is very easy. Keeping at the top when things have changed is much, much more challenging. And of course, you need to review and evaluate. is this change working? And by the way, when we say, is this change working? Sometimes you just need to be flexible. Don't let ego take over. There could be a change you introduce and it's not working. Clearly, it is causing more harm than good. So swallow your pride and let it go. So I remember there is a campaign I made. So I said, let me go on Facebook and advertise for this particular opportunity. And I spent 3 million Uganda shillings. That was about $800. And I didn't get the results I was looking for. In fact, I didn't make a sale after spending that $800. And one of the guys who was looking at me said, you know what, you just need to look at these numbers and know that it's very clear things are not working. So I stopped that campaign. And it was very easy for me to see that indeed things were not working, the numbers were not working. I had to come up with a different strategy. And if I was to just be, to just put on a tough face and just I don't want to swallow my pride, then I would have spent more money and gone further into the hole. So we were going through this as Success Africa. We were being trained on how to advertise on Facebook. And yeah, so this guy said all that in front of my whole team, and I was very comfortable with that. So one of the things I've worked on is to really reduce my ego to make it as thin as possible. So review and evaluate. If it's working, move forward. If it's not working, drop it. Or it might mean that you just need to change something. So Facebook was not the problem. It was my strategy, which I needed to change. Yeah, someone asked about the regression part, that say no to regression. And what I meant by that is, it is always much easier to go back to the old. And let me give you an example, and it's also part of human nature. Let's just suppose you want to start waking up at 4. I'll tell you my personal experience, to wake up at 4. And then the alarm goes off, but before then you used to wake up at 6. The truth of the matter is you could get up for the first 3 days. The 4th day, you're like, today let me sleep in for another 1 hour. Now that is regressing. It has happened to me several times in regards to waking up at 4 goal. So I've changed that to go to something else now. So the point I was making is you have to be very careful when you're managing change, to be persistent, to keep the standards high, to demand more of yourself, to demand bigger results from your team, so that you keep the change going. Because but after all, we survived with coming in 20 minutes late. That's much easier to do. And I'm saying, no. If you really want to progress, because what we're talking about is managing change for success. To be successful, you need to be persistent and keep pushing the envelope, right? So that's what I mean by not regressing or going backwards. So in one of the teams, Justine Namara has just shared with us in that they committed to the 7-day challenge. And I really like this, which you should reflect upon yourself. And that is, reflect on 2 past situations. Number 1, when you were driving the change, meaning you are in the driver's seat and you are taking charge of that. And number 2, when you were part of the team being driven for change, meaning you were a passenger, someone else was driving that change in the organization or in the street. How did you fare in both scenarios? Okay, so that's fantastic challenge to pay attention to. And I would also add, say, okay, looking back, knowing what you know now, what do you think you did well that you should keep doing? Number 2, what could you have done differently to fare better in both aspects, when you are driving the change and when you are being part of a team being driven for change? So yes, think about the scenarios, how you fared. And when you say fared, it's not just also about performance. Also think about, how are you feeling? What were your emotions? What were you telling yourself? That will give you so much information. And looking back, what did you celebrate that you did well in both situations? And if you had to go back knowing what you know now, what could you have done differently that you need to do differently moving forward? Brilliant, brilliant. Thank you so much, Team Justine. I don't know who else you are with, but that was brilliant. And of course, I've added in my own spin, my own additions. So just go ahead and implement that, okay? You're welcome, Justine. Thank you too. Now, let's look at the skill set. And with this skill set, or with the strategies, we focus more on when you are the one leading the change, what should you pay attention to? With the skill set, we're going to change the gears a bit to focus more on you, the individual. And I'm calling it the Migrate model, okay, for change. So Migrate is an acronym that will remind you of these segments. Number one, M stands for mindful of the potential shock. So you just need to be aware of that, in that something could happen, or there could be possibilities that could be coming your way that could shock you or that could surprise you. So don't just move in with blindfolds on. And number two, internalize the situation and accept it. So you just need to know that this change has come, accept it, embrace it. Just like the teacher was telling you about, she was a little slow to internalize and accept the situation for what it was. And, you know, this is something that you need to quickly snap yourself out of and step into the reality. Then three is you need to be genius enabled, meaning you need to get creative. Allow yourself to imagine. In other words, you transport yourself into the genius car, so to speak, if that one exists. Get creative, imagine the possibilities, okay? Explore the possibilities. Do not stop where you are at. Next is you need to rationalize. What I mean by stay balanced, flush out negative emotions, let them go, heal them, okay? And Samantha, you could remind me tomorrow, I can post the peace process. But you need to, so for the mastermind members, by the way, I teach, not only teach, but help them flush out whatever negative emotions they have. I help them flush them to zero, okay? If you have some emotions, I can help you flush them out. Super, super quick. Then next, you need to adapt quickly, move with the tide. Do not, so there's acceptance. See, you may accept but not adapt. So not only do you need to accept, but you also need to adapt quickly and move with the tide. And know, you know what? This situation requires me to move this way. You know, my favorite example is there are people who are experts at using the typewriter. They failed to adapt quickly to the computer age. And those people were left behind. So you need to adapt quickly, super quick, my friend. And then next level is you don't just need to adapt to move with the tide. You need to transform to a higher level. That what got you here won't keep you here. You see, it's one thing getting to the top. Staying there, by the way, is harder. Getting to the top is the easier part, but staying there is even harder because other people are looking forward to displacing you, to kicking you off the grid, so to speak. So you need to keep transforming. You need to keep evolving. You need to keep pushing the envelope. I'm very happy that we were aiming for 40 days and now we are going to 50. Because that wasn't, I just feel inspired to do that. So, and that's, you know, that's transforming to a higher level, performing at a higher level. What else can you do to move to a higher level? Okay. Please do not ask me to go to 100. That's the max for now. Then the other one, of course, next level is you need to evaluate your actions. So here I'm showing you about how you should manage your psychology, how you should think, how you should behave amidst change. This Migrate model will help you to not only survive, but also thrive. Because you can see from 1 up to 5, you're surviving amidst change. Next step is you need to figure out a way to thrive. And you thrive by transforming, by knowing that what got you there, to move with the tide won't keep you there. And also you evaluate your actions and then you adopt quickly. So from number 1 to number 5, that is surviving, so that you do not die. But then just surviving is not enough. You're not here to just survive. You're also meant to thrive. Then you progress to the level of thriving by transforming and also evaluating. All right, let's switch to mastery. Number 1 is devise 3 strategies that you can use to adapt to the new normal, both at work and at home. Okay. Next is use the Migrate model and plug it into the changes happening as a result of the pandemic, as an example. And if you're watching this past the pandemic, you can use it as a result of any change happening in your life. For you, it may not be the pandemic. It could be marriage. It could be that you now have children and that's the new change. It could be that you were just working from home, now you have to work from office. So you are working from office, now you have to work from home. So either way, the Migrate model still works. It's still very relevant, okay? Still very relevant, and so are the strategies. So that's what I want you to do. That's your task, my friend.
Ownership.
Come again, Godfrey?
So I was talking about where in the strategies do you emphasize ownership of the change so it can be implemented much more successfully if they own it?
Okay, got you.
Yes.
Got you. Thank you. So now, when you say strategy, them owning that's a great question. So when you look at this, there's that. This setting the vision. This is where you enroll them. When you are establishing the rationale, this is where you enroll them, for them to be part of this. So as much as possible, all these moves that you're making, you just have to be showing them how they are part of this and why it's important for them. So that notion of them owning and being part of the change has to be embedded throughout all this. And that's something you have to pay attention to from the word go, especially from the word go. You have to sell to them why it's important for them. Then the other, although what I found even more beneficial is if there is something that you're eyeing, you can ask people, can you please propose? Make suggestions on how you think this can happen or how we can do this. And usually 8 to 9 out of 10 times, you'll find that your thought process is not so much different from theirs. Now, all of a sudden, it will look like it's their idea. So I always like proposing for the team to propose those changes that they want to see. Now, once it comes from them, then all of a sudden, boom, they are on board. Okay. Does that make sense, Chief?
Very, very clear, Ethan, especially aligning the thought process to their thought process. Thank you.
Pardon. Oh, thank you. And Justine says the process is called co-creation. Yes, absolutely. You co-create the future, the present and the future.